What's going on, everybody? I appreciate you tuning in. My name is Rome Bailey, and I work alongside Douglas Construction. And today I have a fun one for you roofing contractors and homeowners. So I'm going to be reviewing 3 different topics that most insurance carriers don't really discuss beforehand because it's more or less part of the claims process than it is just a part of you buying a policy. So just want to start with the disclaimer. I'm not an insurance expert by any means, but this is just from experience. This is the things I run into, and these are the things a lot of people aren't going to be able to talk about or go into depth about without just having to deal with it on a day-to-day basis, like I do a lot of the times, because while we are a roofing contractor, we do a lot of insurance restoration work. So the 3 big topics I'm going to be covering today are things that are going to factor in outside of the claim, things you may want to pay attention to as far as other damages before you even go to file a claim. 2, I'm going to be touching on existing claims or prior claims and how they may impact you moving forward. Last thing I'm going to touch on is just some strategies that I see that have been pretty prevalent, but is really prevalent as far as the larger carriers go. Not going to name anybody out, but you may know who you are. So let's jump right into it. Number 1, so some things you may want to consider before filing a claim is just doing a walk-around assessment of the current condition of your property. Let's say you go to file a roofing claim because you have hail damage or a weather-related event damage. If it does damage your roof and an adjuster comes out and looks at the property, be wary because he's going to document everything a lot of the time. Some of them are going to be really storm-specific, but especially like a senior adjuster, they're going to want to take a picture of everything. And what I mean by that is, let me give you 2 examples. One example I had is something I wasn't involved with, where a homeowner knew he had damage, but he wanted to wait to file a claim because he wanted to address some of the rotten siding on his dormers or on the side of his home. Before, when he had filed a claim, while it was a water claim inside his home, they took a look around the home, saw a lot of the things weren't being maintained for them to properly insure the home. Therefore, they threatened to non-renew his policy even if the claim got paid out because he wasn't maintaining his property. Another example I'll give is when I had a senior adjuster come out on a recent weather-related claim where there was hail damage to a roof, and he noticed that there was overhanging tree branches on the property. And what he told the homeowner was, from a perspective as a carrier, we need to have these trees removed because we can't continue to insure your home properly if your home is at risk for factors that you can control. This is going to vary a good bit, but it's definitely something to be wary of before just moving ahead with the claim. So keep that in mind before you file. Number 2 that I'm going to get into is, this is going to be a little more extensive because there's a lot of factors that definitely play into this, but I'm going to touch on a couple of the big ones, is how prior claims can impact your existing claim. So whenever I go to a homeowner's home, whether they called me out there or I just go knock their door and I talk to them about hail damage or any weather-related events, I'm going to ask, has there been prior claims on their record? Reason being, this can have a huge impact moving forward. So let's say they had a hail claim a year ago on a storm that was maybe a little bit smaller and it got denied. So what I want to do is find out, where's the photo report for that, what it looked like beforehand, because what you don't want to happen is, let's say you file a new claim on a storm a year later and it's the same damages from a year ago that they already fought and got denied. This is going to be very easy grounds for a dismissal or a denial, and ultimately now you have 2 claims on your record. That's another one I want to piggyback off of, because if you have 1 or 2 prior claims within the last 3 years, this is going to put you at a great risk of being non-renewed by your carrier. There's not really a blanket statement, but a good rule of thumb is 3 claims within the past 2 years. That's very easy grounds for an insurance carrier to deny you too much of a liability, and it's going to be really hard to find coverage, let alone good coverage. So unless it's a dire need, unless it's 2-inch hail or something really critical, or obviously if a pipe burst or something along those lines where it's causing, 5 figures plus amount worth of damage, of course, file a claim, use your insurance if you need to. I know some things are just outside your control. I've had it several times where I'm working on a hail claim with somebody or a wind-related event and a pipe burst. So now they have, boom, 2 claims at the exact same time. But from a contractor's perspective, I just never want to put a homeowner in a worse situation than I found them. So if it's not a super severe hail damage or super severe weather event, and they can realistically go on another 5 years before they see major issues, I'm going to be cautious, and I'm going to have that conversation with the homeowner before pushing them forward for a claim that may not be in their best interest. Now, it's important to know, if they did file a claim before, how extensive that claim was. Because I dealt with one recently where not only was it denied, but they had an engineer come out and they were really against paying for this roof. Maybe it was questionable damage, but if they took it to that degree, that's a very, very thorough report, and that's going to be very hard to overturn unless the new damage is extremely extensive. So those are some big things you may want to keep in mind before filing a new claim. Last thing I want to touch on is just some of the strategies some of the larger carriers are going to use. A larger carrier, a lot of time what they're going to do is not have an adjuster climb up on the roof after a claim is filed. So the way it typically works is you inspect a roof, you find damage. If it's enough to warrant a claim with a good hail date and damage, collateral damages, hail damage or wind damage to the roof that is all coherent, then you would move it forward, you get in contact with the insurance carrier, and then they're going to schedule an adjustment. So 9 times out of 10 with a larger carrier, you're going to have a third-party company that is hired for maybe liability reasons. I think there's a little bit more going on, but in my personal opinion, but they're going to hire a third party that is paid to come out there and climb the roof. Now, a lot of these times, these people are not certified. They're not what we call Hague certified to look for damage. Their job is to be a photographer, go up there, climb the roof safely, and document any damages. This is where it's super critical to make sure your roofing contractor is out there to meet them. It's already critical with an adjuster there because you want to see eye to eye, but it's even more critical when there's somebody that doesn't have the opinion to actually make a decision. You want to make sure that they're documenting as much as possible to try and get that claim pushed through the first time when it's legitimate damage. A lot of the issues I see with these third parties is roofing contractors do not meet them out there. And then also they're paid per inspections. It's in their best interest to run as many inspections as possible, which means they're going to have a route. A lot of them are not going above and beyond, so they were going to get the minimal photos they need, and then they're going to move on to the next one. So it's on the roofing contractor to actually hold these people liable to make sure they're getting as much documentation as possible. So that way, when they turn their photo report over to an adjuster who's just looking at it on a screen, they can paint the best picture they can that if there's damage or if there's not damage up on that roof, and then make a call from there. The big problem is with this, as you can guess, you have an adjuster looking at photos on a screen instead of actually looking at it in person. So sometimes, especially when it's an older roof, it can be very hard to discern if you don't get very good photos, the color of the shingle, the time of the day, if it's a little damp. There's a lot of things that can make the pictures also not be an accurate representation. So I'm not a big fan of this process. I get why they do it. I think it's easier grounds for denial in my opinion, but also it's just a higher volume thing. And I'm sure from an insurance standpoint, it's definitely more of a liability to have people climbing up on a roof than to have them falling off. And from that aspect, I also get it. Third-party ladder inspection is literally an industry born from the insurance and the roofing claims in and of itself. So I'm not against it. I've had great experiences with ladder assist before. I think there are a lot of people out there doing a wonderful job, but it's not always in the homeowner's best interest. And be cautious. I always say ask for an adjuster when and if possible. And also make sure you have somebody there that's a roofing contractor that represents you, ideally that did the first inspection, that gets up there and to make sure that they hold them accountable. Hope this helps. Thanks for watching, guys.